The following training video describes the operation and maintenance of the Man Overboard Indicator system. The MOBI program is managed by the Naval Sea Systems Command and Naval Surface Warfare Center, Philadelphia Division.
MOBI, or Man Overboard Indicator, is a personal water-activated man overboard alarm system utilized by the United States Navy. The trade name for the system is ORCA, which stands for Overboard Recovery Communications Apparatus, and was developed by Briartech Incorporated. The alarm system includes a transmitter, a receiver, and direction finder. The transmitter is worn on the Mark I float coat and the stern's inherently buoyant life jacket. MOBI aids in the detection, location, and recovery of individuals who become separated from the safety of their vessel and are exposed to the harsh elements of the sea. When the alarm is activated, the transmitter emits a 121.5 MHz signal. A visual and audible alarm on the receiver activates upon receipt of this signal, indicating the identity of the man overboard. This signal is processed by the direction finder, providing a continuous bearing to the man overboard. MOBI allows for a locally managed man overboard recovery, ensuring that a victim is recovered quickly, which minimizes the effects of exposure. Search and rescue assets outfitted with traditional direction-finding equipment are capable of homing in on the MOBI signal to aid in a recovery effort.
The MOBI transmitter is worn by ship's force personnel, including the aviation detachment. Two versions of the transmitter are in use by the U.S. Navy, TX-103 and TX-104. Initial outfitting on LHA-7 includes the TX-103. However, when requisitioning replacement transmitters, ship's force must specify the TX-104, as the TX-103 is no longer supported in the Navy supply system. A note on the TX-103 APL provides this guidance. The transmitters consist of an antenna, a manual activation function, saltwater sensors, a distress marker light, and a battery access panel. It should be noted that the TX-104 transmitter manual activation function performs a battery check only and does not alarm the MOBI receiver. All transmitters are serialized and programmed to specific hull numbers. Hull registration and transmitter serial numbers are labeled on each transmitter. The MOBI receiver is mounted on the aft bulkhead of the navigation bridge. The helical overmolded antenna and GPS antenna are mounted on the 07 level above the starboard bridge wing. The interface components of the receiver are the LCD touchscreen, piezoelectric buzzer, and power switch. The model number of this receiver is designated RX-103. The MOBI direction finder consists of a relative bearing display, which is mounted on the forward bulkhead of the navigation bridge, and an antenna array, which is mounted on the 07 level above the starboard bridge wing. A second antenna array is mounted on the 07 level above the port bridge wing. This second antenna array is required due to obstruction from the ship's superstructure. A switch box is mounted adjacent to the DF display, which enables bridge watchstanders to toggle between the two DF antennas in order to provide the most consistent signal on the DF display. The display contains controls and indicators including power on-off, an internal speaker, volume on-off, squelch increase and decrease, a clear function, a dim function, signal strength indicator, a warning LED, a circular display bearing indicator, and a numeric bearing indicator. The antenna is comprised of a housing and 8 antenna elements. Direction finders are also installed on the ship's recovery boats. The model number of the direction finder is DF-101.
Transmitter operation. The TX-103 transmitter has 3 modes of operation: armed, transmit, and disabled. Each TX-103 is armed after a 9-volt alkaline battery is correctly installed and the manual switch is in the off position. The TX-103 is in the transmit mode when it is automatically or manually activated. While the TX-103 is in the transmit mode, it emits a 121.5 MHz signal, which allows the receiver to determine which transmitter has been activated and enables the DF to track the transmitter. The TX-103 is in the disabled mode when the battery is removed or the battery runs out of charge. Automatic activation. The TX-103 automatically activates when the transmitter is fully submerged in salt water for a minimum of 3 seconds. The distress marker light begins flashing to indicate activation. Approximately 3 to 5 seconds after the distress marker light begins flashing, the transmitter will begin to transmit. Deactivation. To deactivate the transmitter when it has been manually activated, rotate the switch to the off position. To deactivate the transmitter when it has been automatically activated, rotate the switch from the off position to the on position and then to the off position again. This sends an all-clear message to the receiver and returns the transmitter to the armed mode.
MOBI receiver operation. As part of pre-underway checks, the MOBI receiver should be turned on and remain on at all times while the ship is underway. To turn on the receiver, toggle the on-off switch to the on position. When the receiver powers on, the RX103 LCD will display the word scanning across the screen. Additional information including the date, time, signal strength, and GPS indication will appear in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. If the GPS antenna is connected and functioning correctly, the date and time will update continuously and the screen will display GPS valid. Note that time is displayed as Coordinated Universal Time or UTC. If the GPS antenna is not connected or it is functioning incorrectly, the date and time will not update and will eventually be inaccurate. In addition, the screen will display no GPS lock. Own ship transmitter detection. When a MOBI beacon that is programmed to your own ship is activated and within range, the MOBI receiver audible alarm will activate with a loud siren tone and the LCD will display the beacon ID, name and rank of the MOB if it has been programmed into the receiver, the vessel ID, and the elapsed time. If the GPS antenna is installed and functioning correctly, the ship's position at the time of the MOB event as well as the updated true bearing from the ship to that position will be displayed. To silence the alarm without canceling the alarm, press the Silence Alarm button on the LCD. Note that this does not cancel the alarm from the receiver's memory. To cancel the alarm, the receiver must receive the MOB clear signal from the transmitter when it is deactivated. The user may also press the Clear Selected MOB button on the LCD to cancel the alarm. This function is provided to allow the user the ability to remove the ID information from the receiver's memory in the event it did not receive the deactivation signal from a transmitter. Also note that if the transmitter is still active, the receiver will alarm again once it receives the signal. Non-own ship beacon detection. When a MOBI beacon that is programmed to another ship is activated and within range, the MOBI receiver audible alarm will activate with a chirp tone and the beacon information, including ship ID, beacon ID, and battery condition will appear in the lower left-hand corner of the home screen. The Silence Alarm button and Clear Selected MOB button do not appear when a non-own ship beacon is detected. The receiver does not retain non-own ship activation information in memory and therefore does not need to be cleared. When a non-own ship beacon is deactivated or goes out of range, the information is no longer displayed and the audible alarm is silenced. If multiple own ship beacon activations have been detected by the receiver, the LCD will display two numbers at the top of the screen. The first number indicates the own ship beacon information displayed on the screen, and the second number indicates the total number of beacon activations. To view the next beacon information, press the Next button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. To view the previous beacon information, press the Previous button in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Settings. To access the Settings screen, press the Settings button on the home screen. The Settings screen will display the Vessel Identification, Backlight Settings button, Alarm Settings button, View Individual Logs button, View Cron Logs button, Register Sailor Information button, Advanced Settings button, and Back button. Backlight Settings. To adjust the receiver display's brightness, press the Backlight Settings button on the Settings screen and the Backlight Settings screen will appear. Press and slide the Daytime Backlight Level Indicator or the Night Backlight Level Indicator to the desired level. Once the desired adjustment has been made, press the Apply button and the display will return to the Settings screen. Alarm Settings. To adjust the receiver's volume when alarming, press the Alarm Settings button on the Settings screen and the Alarm Settings screen will appear. Press and slide the indicator to the desired level. To hear the volume level, press the Test Volume button. Once the desired adjustment has been made, press the Apply button and the display will return to the Settings screen. View Individual Logs. To search the receiver's database for activation of a specific owned-ship transmitter, press the View Individual Logs button on the Settings screen and the Beacon ID entry screen will appear. Enter the last 4 digits of the Beacon ID and press OK. The individual log screen will display the date, time, event, and battery status of all transmissions the selected beacon has made, beginning with the most recent event. Select the Details button to display name, title, or rank, and GPS data associated with the selected event. To return to the Settings screen, press Done. View Chronological Logs. To display a chronological list of all owned-ship transmitter activations, press the View Chron Logs button on the Settings screen and the Chronological Logs screen will appear. This screen will display the date, time, event, and beacon ID of each transmitter activation beginning with the most recent event. Select the Details button to display name, title or rank, and GPS data associated with the selected event. To return to the Settings screen, press Done. Register Sailor Information. To enter, edit, or remove a person's name in the receiver's database, press the Register Sailor Information button on the Settings screen and the Beacon ID entry screen will appear. Enter the last 4 digits of the Beacon ID to be registered, edited, or deleted, and press OK. The Stored Info screen will appear next. If the beacon has not already been registered, no information will be displayed in the name or title fields. Enter, edit, or delete name and title or rank information as follows. Press the Set Name button and the Set Name screen will appear. Enter, edit, or delete the person's name as applicable using the touchscreen keyboard. To enter symbols, press the SY key. Once completed, press the Enter key. Press the Set Title button and the Set Title screen will appear. Enter, edit, or delete the person's title or rank as applicable using the touchscreen pad. Once completed, press the Enter key. Advanced Settings. This function is used to modify vessel and user information. It is also used to initiate RSSI log data. Warning: changing the vessel and user information can cause the receiver to lose data or not function properly. If it is necessary to access this feature, contact the OEM or the MOBI program office. Night and daytime modes. When the officer of the deck has set darken ship, press the Night Mode button on the home screen to toggle the screen display from daytime mode to night mode. To return to daytime mode, press the Daytime Mode button. MOBI Direction Finder Operation. The DF101 Power On-Off button provides power to the system and restores default settings. After pressing this button for at least 1 second, the DF101 will perform a system check to determine it is functioning properly. While it is performing this check, all LEDs will illuminate. After the system check is complete, the only remaining illuminated LEDs will be the Power On LED and the Speaker On-Off LED. Check to ensure the warning LED in the center of the display is not illuminated. If this LED is illuminated, service is required. The squelch buttons are used to adjust the unit's sensitivity to radio frequency or RF signals received by the DF. The squelch increase function is normally utilized in high traffic areas such as shipping channels, airport flight paths, and populated areas. It is also used to reduce interference from own ship emissions. To increase squelch, press and hold down the squelch increase button. When the vessel is operating in open waterways from high traffic areas, decrease squelch by pressing and holding the squelch decrease button. This will increase the unit's sensitivity to RF signals, allowing more of the MOBI signal to be received. Squelch level is indicated on the circular display. In addition, squelch value will be displayed on the numeric bearing indicator. To determine the optimum squelch level, decrease squelch until static is heard on the DF speaker. Then increase squelch until static is no longer heard. The internal speaker provides audible indication of the received distress signal as well as any signal being transmitted at the 121.5 MHz frequency. The speaker button turns the volume on and off. When the speaker LED is illuminated, the volume is off. The DF averages the received bearing 100 times per second. This allows for more accurate readings when conditions such as inclement weather or heavy sea state do not permit constant signal from the transmitter to the DF. This affects the rate at which the DF processes the signal from the transmitter, and as a result, when the ship or recovery boat changes course rapidly, it causes a delay of approximately 2 to 3 seconds for the DF to update the bearing of the MOB. The clear button enables the DF to clear this average bearing value and resets the DF to its current bearing value. To clear the bearing value, press and hold the squelch decrease and dim buttons simultaneously. The signal strength LEDs illuminate when signal is received. These indicate the incoming signal strength on a graduated scale from 1 indicating a weak signal to 6 indicating a strong signal. As the vessel approaches the MOB, the user should expect to see the LEDs increase in number, indicating a stronger signal strength. The warning LED will alert the user to a failure in the system. If this happens, turn off power and check cable connections. Turn power on. If the problem still persists, service is required. When the DF receives an MOB signal, the bearing indicator LED on the display will illuminate, indicating the relative bearing to the MOB. Bearing accuracy is plus or minus 5 degrees. The indication may be sporadic depending on weather conditions, sea state, and interference from other emitters. In addition, since the transmitter sends the signal in different transmission modes, these signals will be displayed somewhat differently. When the transmitter is sending the unique ID, the signal is sent in short, intermittent bursts, causing the bearing indicator LED on the display to illuminate intermittently. When the transmitter finishes sending the unique ID after approximately 1 minute, a continuous transmission is sent for approximately 45 seconds, causing the bearing indicator LED on the display to illuminate continuously. The transmitter will alternate, sending the unique ID for approximately 10 seconds and then continuous transmission for 45 seconds. This transmission sequence continues until the transmitter battery runs out or the transmitter is turned off. Finally, 2 DF antennas were installed on LHA-7 to mitigate the interference caused by the ship's superstructure. One antenna is installed above the port bridge wing and a second antenna is installed above the starboard bridge wing. A switch box is installed on the bridge adjacent to the DF display to toggle between the 2 antennas. If the MOB signal on the DF display appears to bounce, referred to as multipath, switch to the other antenna in order to improve the signal.
MOBI system procedures for bridge watchstanders. After the initial alert from the receiver that an MOB has occurred, turn on the DF. Determine the bearing to the MOB. The illuminated LED on the circular display will indicate the relative bearing to the MOB. Effect recovery of the MOB. Once the MOB is recovered, ensure the recovery team turns off the transmitter. This will cause the transmitter to send an all-clear signal to the receiver, indicating the MOB has been recovered. MOBI system procedures for recovery boat personnel. Upon manning the recovery boat, ensure the recovery boat power panel main breaker and the MOBI breaker are turned on. Locate the DF display. The display is mounted on the recovery boat console in front of the coxswain. Remove the tethered display cover. Turn on power at the display. Locate the DF adcock antenna. On 7-meter ribs, the antenna is mounted on the transom and can pivot from the vertical to horizontal position for safe stowage. If the antenna and mast are in the horizontal position, raise the antenna and mast to the vertical position and lock in place with the locking pin. After the DF is ready to receive signal and the recovery boat is underway and making way, establish the general direction to the MOB by communicating with the bridge. Do not immediately rely on the accuracy of the DF, as the signal coming from the MOBI transmitter may reflect off the ship. This can produce a false bearing on the recovery boat DF display. Once you have created some distance between the recovery boat and the ship, which can be anywhere from 10 to 100 yards, depending on the location of the MOB relative to the ship, the illuminated bearing LEDs on the DF circular display will become more accurate and should be used to provide the relative bearing to the MOB. When closing the distance to the MOB, do not steer directly at the MOB. Maintain the bearing of the MOB 10 to 20 degrees off the bow of the recovery boat to avoid accidental impact with the victim. As the vessel approaches the MOB, establish visual contact and effect recovery. Once the MOB is recovered, ensure the recovery team turns off the transmitter. This will cause the transmitter to send an all-clear signal to the receiver on the ship's bridge, indicating the MOB has been recovered.
MOBI transmitter maintenance. To install the MOBI TX103 in the Mark I float coat or the inherently buoyant life preserver, perform the procedures as detailed in the startup MRC for installing the TX103 transmitters in life preservers, MIP Series 6630. Note that when replacement transmitters are requisitioned through the supply system, the replacement transmitter is the TX104, and the same MRC will be used for installing this transmitter on PFDs. Before installing the TX103, inspect the transmitter according to the Inspect and Test MOBI TX103 transmitter MRC before proceeding. To install the TX103 transmitter in the Mark I float coat, insert the transmitter into the MOBI pocket located on the left side of the Mark I. For transmitters used on flight decks, turn the transmitter around so the manual flip switch is not exposed to the opening in the side of the pocket. Failure to do so could cause the switch to break, causing an aviation FOD hazard. Run the antenna through the channels located inside the float coat. The first channel is on the left side of the float coat, and the second is located behind the neck. After the antenna is all the way through the channel behind the neck, attach a tie-down strap to the tip of the antenna. Ensure a large loop is left in the tie-down strap. The loop prevents the antenna from slipping back down the channel. To install the TX103 transmitter in the Inherently Buoyant Life Preserver, or IBLP, insert the transmitter in the MOBI pocket located on the right side of the life preserver. For transmitters used on flight decks, turn the transmitter around so that the manual flip switch is not exposed to the opening in the side of the pocket. Next, insert the antenna through the hole in the pocket flap and through the series of channels along the front and behind the collar. Once the antenna is fully through the channels in the IBLP, the antenna tip should be exposed at the end of the collar channel. Attach a tie-down strap to the antenna tip to keep it in place. Ensure a large loop is left in the tie-down strap to prevent the antenna from slipping back down the channel. If the PFD does not include the MOBI pocket, follow the guidance provided in the startup MRC for installing the transmitter using the backfit configuration. MOBI receiver maintenance. To test the MOBI receiver for proper functionality, perform the procedures as detailed in the Inspect MOBI Receiver System MRC, MIP Series 6630. Follow all safety precautions, including notifying the officer of the deck that the MOBI system is being serviced. First, inspect the receiver antenna and GPS antenna and ensure the antennas are not missing or damaged. Inspect the antenna cable for deteriorated jacket. Inspect associated hardware for corrosion or rust, lack of weatherproofing, broken wires, missing hardware, and accumulation of salt, soot, or petroleum film. Next, turn the MOBI receiver on-off switch to the on position. Verify the correct vessel ID is displayed on the MOBI receiver LCD. Place an assistant with a MOBI transmitter at the fantail of the ship. Instruct the assistant to activate the MOBI transmitter. When the signal is detected by the receiver, ensure the audible alarm siren activates and the LCD displays the vessel ID and MOB ID. When the alarm is received, press the silence button to silence the audible alarm. Instruct the assistant to deactivate the MOBI transmitter. Verify the transmitter has deactivated by ensuring the transmitter LED is not illuminated. Verify the LCD displays MOB clear. Finally, notify the OOD that maintenance is completed and the MOBI system is operational, and notify the Work Center supervisor of any discrepancies. MOBI Direction Finder Maintenance. To test the MOBI DF for proper functionality, perform the procedures as detailed in the Inspect MOBI Bridge DF System and Inspect MOBI Rib DF System MRCs, MIP Series 6630. Separate MRCs apply to the Bridge and Rib DF maintenance. The procedures are similar, but the periodicities are different. Follow all safety precautions, including notifying the officer of the deck that the MOBI system is being serviced. Visually inspect the antenna array for the correct number of antenna elements, 4 elements extending up from the housing and 4 elements extending down. Visually inspect the antenna arrays for cracks in the housing. Inspect the antenna cable for deteriorated jacket. Inspect associated hardware for corrosion or rust, lack of weatherproofing, broken wires, missing hardware, and accumulation of salt, soot, or petroleum film. Ensure the arrow on the antenna array is pointing 000 degrees relative to the vessel it is installed on. This affects how the signal is displayed on the DF display. Turn the MOBI DF on by depressing the power button on the DF display until the power indicator LED illuminates. Observe the power-up system check. When the check is complete, the power on LED will be illuminated. If the warning LED is illuminated, service is required. Place an assistant with a MOBI transmitter at the bow of the vessel. When the signal is detected by the DF, the bearing indicator LED will illuminate on the display. Ensure the illuminated bearing indicator LED correlates with the actual bearing of the transmitter. Instruct the assistant to move to the stern of the vessel with the activated transmitter. Ensure the illuminated bearing indicator LED correlates with the actual bearing. Using the switch box, rotate the knob to alternate to the other antenna array and repeat the steps. When complete, deactivate the transmitter. Verify the transmitter has deactivated by ensuring the transmitter LED is not illuminated. Verify that the power indicator is the only remaining LED illuminated on the DF display. Finally, notify the OOD that maintenance is completed and the MOBI system is operational, and notify the Work Center supervisor of any discrepancies. MOBI battery backup power supply maintenance. To test the MOBI battery backup power supply for proper functionality, perform the procedures as detailed in the Test Backup Power Supply Battery MRC, MIP Series 6630. Follow all safety precautions including tag out and notify the officer of the deck that the MOBI system is being serviced. Ensure the MOBI receiver on-off switch is in the on position. Verify that the receiver has been energized for at least 48 hours. De-energize the MOBI circuit breaker to simulate a loss of power. Verify that the receiver is still energized. If the receiver is not energized, the backup battery needs to be replaced. If that is the case, stop the maintenance check and replace the battery using MRC U3, MIP Series 6630. Note: the battery backup power supply includes a 9-volt nickel metal hydride rechargeable battery. After battery replacement, the MOBI circuit must be energized for 48 hours to allow the battery to fully charge. To complete the maintenance, energize the MOBI circuit. Return the MOBI system to readiness condition as required. Finally, notify the OOD that maintenance is completed and the MOBI system is operational, and notify the Work Center supervisor of any discrepancies. MOBI pre-underway checks. To perform pre-underway checks, follow the guidance as detailed in the Perform MOBI Bridge and Rib Pre-Underway Operational Tests MRC MIP Series 6630. The procedures are similar to the Inspect MOBI Receiver and Inspect MOBI Direction Finder MRCs, but, as with all maintenance, ensure the MRC is available and follow the procedures as provided in the MRC. The information in this training video has been provided to improve your knowledge of the use and maintenance of the MOBI system. This personal protective equipment can save your life if you are a man overboard victim. For more information on the MOBI system, including tech manuals, PMS, APLs, AELs, training videos, test procedures, and more, go to the manufacturer's website at www.briartech.com and register for access to the MOBI DoD product support page.